Today we're going to look at risk, and this is going to be the beginning of a series of lessons on how to communicate various aspects of risk. The first thing we need to understand is that the risk we hope to focus on today or need to focus on today is likely very different than the risk we're going to be focusing on in a month from now or that was on our radar screen a year ago. This is simply one night of the nightly news. We had risk about Ebola, which has been an ongoing story in the fall of 2014, the risk of ISIS in the Middle East, the risk of artificial turf and what it might present as a health hazard to kids playing on these artificial turf fields. So let's just think of risk as something that is socially constructed and that has components that really dictate and influence how we perceive the risk. Is the risk voluntary or is it coerced? In other words, I might downhill ski and not see it as risky, but if you slash my legs to some pieces of wood and push me off a hill, I might perceive that as very risky. Is the risk natural, as in natural disasters, or does it occur from man-made sources? Is it familiar to us, or is it very exotic? Is it a memorable risk or not very memorable? All of these things go into understanding both how risk is perceived and thus how we should be communicating about it. So risk in part is a social construct. So who defines risk? Experts and scientists, societal norms. If everybody stops smoking, then we perceive greater risk in smoking. The media plays an enormous role in setting the agenda for what scares us, what we worry about, what we perceive as risky. Influencers and leaders. If we have our mayor or our president or emergency management officials talking to us a lot about a potential risk, that can heighten our risk perception. And of course, the people in our community are great sources of either reliable or unreliable risk perception. We perceive risk very often because of the people who are surrounding us. So understanding risk is the precursor to communicating it. Are there competing risks out there in the communication environment? Usually, always. Is there changing science in risk? Of course. Are there changing cultural perspectives? Yes, indeed. 50 years ago, doctors were being used in advertisements to promote smoking. That is culturally anathema in the United States today. We have to also acknowledge that risk is very emotional. We respond to our perceived risks with a high emotion. So that's going to affect how we choose to communicate about it and the language we use and the imagery we use, because there's always the danger and the possibility of overwhelming the public. And that's the least favorable result, because if you overwhelm the public, they're going to stop listening, you'll lose your credibility, and then when there is a risk to truly communicate, you may not be the one who gets listened to. So, I hope this was a useful lesson to you. Let us know how you rate this lesson, and stay tuned.